Why do I honestly think self-pleasure, masturbation, solo sex is so important? Well, I truly feel that the way you make love to yourself really reflects in the way you make love to others. Welcome to the Get Sexy with Shari podcast. Today I have a very, very special episode for you. It was supposed to be recording with an incredible guest and she canceled on me because she was sick. So, because of that, you're gifted with a bonus episode, and not just any. May is right around the corner by the time I'm recording this, so I decided to go for Masturbation May. And if you've been following me for a while now, you know how big of a fan I am of self-pleasure. Because let's put it this way, from the get-go already, we talk about masturbation in our day-to-day, but it starts with reframing. And if we see masturbation, if we keep using the term masturbation, we're just not gonna set this episode off for the right tone. So let's call it self-pleasure or solo sex from now on, because language really does matter in sexuality. How you look at yourself, how you speak about yourself, how you speak about the things you do really matters. So let's see masturbation as this really magical portal, a full month where you get to indulge in your own pleasure, have the best sex of your life with your own best lover, which I think, according to me, your own best lover really is yourself. And so, why do I honestly think self-pleasure, masturbation, solo sex is so important? Well, I truly feel that the way you make love to yourself really reflects in the way you make love to others. So, for example, how are we taught, or how are we raised with self-pleasure? I can speak for myself. I did it in my room when I was still living with my parents. My brother was in the room next to me. I had to do it really quick, really quietly, and no one could ever know. So there would be very little movement. It would just be a few strokes and a few movements that I learned myself, or that I taught myself, was like, okay, if I do these things, that's going to set me up for success and I will in no time reach orgasm. And so I would just stick to that. Now, if you think about lovemaking later on, if you are taught to make love to yourself quickly, quietly, it's something that you need to not talk about, then that is also how you will learn yourself or teach yourself to make love to others. And let's be honest, that's not really pleasurable, right? The pleasure lies in being open, being confident, being like this embodied you know, where you claim your erotic self, where you are open about your desires, where you move and breathe and sound openly. That is true lovemaking. But that's not what we teach ourselves when we're doing it quietly, like hush, hush, maybe my parents will walk up. Or I, as a kid, always had to go to bed earlier than my brother did because he was older, and earlier than my parents went to bed. And so I was like, oh, I don't know, when they're coming to bed, but I need to be doing it before them, So that's really how I grew up with it. And I think many of you will be able to relate. What I also notice, and this is especially, I feel, for the male audience, but definitely also for some females, you will relate, is that self-pleasure, masturbation in the past, was something that we used to brag about as well. So we either would hush and would shame ourselves for doing it, so we wouldn't share it with our friends, or, definitely not with our family, right? But sometimes I noticed that people would use it to show off, like, oh, I do it all the time and I last for X amount of time, and this gets me this kind of hard on and these things. And it would really be like a medal of honor, basically. And so again, if you translate that to your lovemaking with a partner or with a lover, again, you're just not going to do it for pleasure's sake or really out of enjoyment and for making love and having pleasure. You're just going to do it out of a performance. It will be an act. It will be a show that you put up because that's how you trained yourself to actually look at self-pleasure. And so this is very important for us to understand, like, what are the roots of our sexuality? What did we grow up with? How did we look at it? How did we speak about it? What did we do and did not do in our own lovemaking to ourselves? And just take a moment, maybe pause me at this point in time and just think for yourself, how did I make love to myself? And how does that affect my sex life today? Just pause me and really take note. This is really important in your sexual reclamation, I find. Now, I already shared, because in this episode, it is my intention for you to not just start masturbating like crazy, you know? Yes, I love self-pleasure, but in this episode, I'll teach you certain things that are going to help you in really seeing this as a tool that can help for you and that can work for you, basically. And that is going to set you up for success in your lovemaking so that you become what I like to call an epic lover. So you go from average lovemaking or average sex to epic lovemaking. Now, one of the tips I want to give you, and I already shared it in the beginning, is that yes, I call it Masturbation May for the sake of this podcast, and because this might be drawing your attention. But I want you to think about what does word masturbation do, given the fact that we used that probably when we were growing up. And so how can we reframe that? Can we make it, instead of something functional that you do like X amount of strokes or X amount of rubs or like whatever it is that you did in the past, masturbation is a very functional term. It really highlights the function and the structure of your session. And can you then transform it and see it maybe as what it is, pleasure, and call it self-pleasure? Or sex with yourself, with your own best lover, and then call it solo sex. I think I heard it actually very recently on a podcast with Sherry Winston, who's one of my many idols, I would say. She's definitely a pioneer in the work or in the field, and she calls it solo sex, which I think is really beautiful. I still prefer self-pleasure because it really highlights this pleasurable aspect of it. So think for yourself. How can I reframe this from something functional, which I always say, like, go from the ordinary into the extraordinary. This is your opportunity to see masturbation, the function, and translate it into something really, really delicious. Okay. Now, before we go on, I would love to also just highlight my own journey, because self-pleasure was really at the root of my own transformation. I get asked so often, Shari, what is it that you did to get to where you are today? And when I share my story, people don't believe me very often because they see the multi-orgasmic woman that I am today, who lives her life, who lives wherever she wants to live, does whatever she wants to do, really lives according to her desires. But like, my younger version was just very shy, was very insecure about her own body, was definitely not in tune with her own sexuality, and would just act, put up performances, do whatever she thought she had to do. And so that's why I really want to highlight also my journey, so you might resonate and see that everyone goes through the mud. Like, we're all lotus flowers, and I like to see it is the lotus flower really starts in the mud and it grows from there, and then it really blossoms, but it always has to go through the mud. So if you think like, oh my gosh, I have so much work to do, I was there, and I'm still there in certain aspects of my life. And so anyhow, sometimes I like to go on this little rant, but you probably know that by now if you're on this episode. So as I said, I was very insecure when I started my journey, and I had to do a lot of healing for my body image. I highlight this in another episode already, which you can listen into. But then what also really helped me is, so through this women's empowerment journey and the healing and the reclamation of my body image and really seeing myself as the goddess that I am, and the body that is like an absolute delight to look at, to be in, to move in, what I also learned is self-pleasure. So this actually, through one of my mentors back then, it was just like I was dipping my toes in the work, right? And I got referred to Layla Martin. Now I did my certification for coaching with her. She's a mentor. She's like a very big part of my life right now. And she introduced me to the work of Tantra. And Tantra is many things. And there's a piece of that I in particular am very drawn to, because it made such a tremendous difference in my own life, is the sacred sexuality aspects of it. And so I was really drawn to that work. And in the beginning, I was like, what the fuck am I doing here? Because I would be doing these online courses and online practices with her. And all of a sudden I had to drop into my body. And let me tell you, self-pleasure was definitely not the masturbation that I had learned. No, the masturbation that I knew was just like, I use my 2 fingers, I put them on my clit, make a few circles, maybe I'll insert some other fingers in my vagina, and I'll just like do certain movements. I'll tense my muscles of my bum and my legs. I'll hold my breath because, ooh, God be aware, I might be like making sounds. And then that would just give me orgasm. And then I jump onto this journey with Layla. And all of a sudden, like, they're speaking about sexuality, they're speaking about self-pleasure. And I'm like, yeah. You know, I know how to get to orgasm, whatever. And then we did these movements, and I needed to make sound, and I needed to breathe in a certain way. And I had to be on all fours. And I was like, how am I going to be on all fours and masturbate and self-pleasure? Because how can I then like rub my clit in the comfortable way that's going to get me orgasm? And I had all of these question marks, but I was open to it. You know, it had taught me so much already. So I was like, yeah, I'm down for more. And I still very often actually have flashbacks to this moment where I was in my living room. And I remember, because my former partner was not at home. So I was like, okay, no one can see me. I can do this. And I was on all fours, and I was just like moving. You know how you go from cat-cow, where you arch your back and then I think you know what I mean. And then I had to synchronize my breath with that. But we were going pretty wild, like, and it was just to unleash my wildness. And I was like, I don't even like, how do you mean wild? Like, and this was also for me a discovery of like, there's so many different flavors to a human experience, to self-pleasure, that I was not aware of, because I was just doing one single thing basically, but maybe a few different flavors, but it was just the same old always. And all of a sudden there was this opening of like, wow, I'm making all of this sound. I'm moving my body, and fuck, it feels good. It felt weird, don't get me wrong, but it felt good. So I was like, oh, as long as there is something good, there is something here. And I was committed to this. And so I decided to just continue and sit with the weirdness, because trust me, there was definitely moments where I went, what the fuck am I doing? If people see me now, they're going to be like, what is happening here? And yeah, definitely, like my former partner would sometimes come in, and I'd be like, ooh, the old pattern or the old thought of like, ooh, what if I get caught, was actually, becoming reality. And also that is something I learned to be with. Like, what happens when someone walks in? It's the most beautiful thing you're doing to yourself. You're making love to yourself. And instead of shying away from it, can you indeed acknowledge, wow, this is vulnerable. And yes, I feel uncomfortable at the moment, but can you share with your partner or whomever walks in, like, the importance of this work and how it makes you feel? And then let that actually be enough to soften again and be like, oh, it's not something I need to be ashamed about. That's a story that I told myself, but it's not something I choose to live by anymore. Anyhow, so I feel like that was a big awakening for me. I would call it an awakening and an entry point into sacred sexuality and into loving myself. And so, yeah, another thing that really helped me basically alongside this journey as I got more into Tantra, into sacred sexuality, and I learned about these beautiful self-pleasure practices is yoni pujas. And so let me just explain what that is, right? So in Tantra, they use the language of Sanskrit. And in Sanskrit, we don't say vulva, we don't say pussy, we say yoni, which is a beautiful portal of pleasure and orgasmic ecstasy, bliss, however you want to call it. And a puja is basically a ritual where you go into full worship. And so I remember as I was on this journey of mostly online stuff, I went to my first, I think it was my first training actually in this as well. I wanted to go deeper, learn from professionals, experts in person. And they say, oh, we're going to do a beautiful ritual. I was like, oh yeah, I'm down for this. Let's do it. And we had to show up naked with just a sarong. So that's like just, a piece of fabric that you rub like a towel basically that you have around you. And I was like, oh my gosh, what are we gonna do? This is all I read about in books and now I'm here doing it. And it was so beautiful because we had to basically just sit on a pillow and open our legs, and it was all guided, right? So this is a beautiful ritual which takes time. It's not just like, you open your legs and let people see your pussy. It was a beautifully guided experience. And then other people could come and sit in front of you and in a devotional way really look at your yoni when you felt like the time is there to open to others for her to be seen. And what was beautiful there, and it changed everything to me, is I'm getting a little nostalgic here, and actually it's really making me emotional a little bit, I notice, because it was definitely impactful. And I don't think I didn't make notes on this. So the fact that it comes up means that it's important to me. In this Yoni Puja ritual, we had to share all of the moments, like we had to give her a voice. And so she was asked like how she felt, what she had experienced in the past that felt pleasurable, what she had experienced in the past that felt less pleasurable, what her future desires are, what the relationship is with her boss, or however you want to call it, basically me, the woman owning her or having her as a part of the body. And it was so beautiful because those are the moments where really she gets to speak and say both the good and the bad and all of those experiences of the juiciness, but also the sadness of I did something where I allowed, for example, a penis to be introduced inside of me when I wasn't ready, or I said yes to something, an experience that was a no, basically. And just acknowledging those facts, giving them a voice was so important. And yeah, I like to not just stick with words. So this is again my invitation to you to just pause this episode for a moment and sit with yourself. Maybe take notes of, if I really tune in with my pussy, and let's maybe do that, just closing your eyes and just becoming aware of her, just dropping your attention to her. And maybe you can give a little squeeze. I like doing that. And if you're a male body, then sorry, I'm going in on yoni a lot. But you can also tune in with your penis, with your lingam is what we call it in Sanskrit, in Tantra. And maybe you can give a little squeeze, maybe in your balls, and or just your PC muscles, the ones that you use when you want to hold your pee, squeezing them just as a gentle awakening and be like, hey, we're here. And then what you can do here as you pause this episode in a moment is just really dropping your awareness to your genitals and asking them what has in my life so far felt really pleasurable to me and what has felt less pleasurable. Where did I lose myself? Where did I go into the pleasing of my partner and lost my own desires? And then I am a sucker for desires. So also checking in with what future desires you hold, what has not been fulfilled yet, and what do you really desire to experience in your future lifetime. And just, you don't have to act on all of those things in terms of desires, but it's just good to give your pussy or your penis, your lingam, a voice. So it's really, really powerful work because they're a part of our body. They're a part of our physical body. They're a part of our energetic imprints. And it's time we listen to them. So yeah, hopefully you're pausing at the moment, or you paused and you're back with me. Yeah, and the reason why it made me emotional at the moment is because I know, and like, I tend to share personal stuff on this episode or on this podcast. So here we go. I had a really hard time actually accepting the form of my genitals. And I know this is going to resonate with a lot of people because the male bodies are like, there's so much pressure on the length of their penis, on the shape, on the... like there's so much pressure on it. But same goes for women, female bodies. It's like there's women adjusting, having surgeries on their yoni because it looks a certain way, So I do really think this is an important topic. In how can you reclaim your pleasure? How can you become multi-orgasmic if you do not accept the shape of your genitals? So I already shared beforehand, like how do you speak to her is important, and how you look at her is also really important, or at him, like if we're speaking to penis owners. So yeah, how do your labia, for example, or your penis look like? Have you ever seen them in the mirror? And I'm gonna in particular here hone in on the female bodies, because male bodies, this is also very important for you to reclaim that the relationship basically with your penis and be at ease with this. Like, it's not necessarily what it looks like. It really is like, how do you relate to it? Can you own your penis? Like, that's, oh yeah, I love this. Can you own your penis? Okay, and now back to the women. The reason why I want to hone in here on women and on female genitalia is because men can see their genitals all the time. You just take off your pants, you look down, and they're right there. And for females, we just see like a percentage of our genitals. And even if we would sit down and we would look down, we have to like curve our entire back and we have to bend and do things. And then still we would only see a percentage of our labia or of our vulva. So the reason why we have to, well, let me say that again. We don't see our genitals as much as the male body does. That doesn't mean that there is less judgment or more judgment or any of that. But it is important for us to have a deeper connection with our genitals. And if we don't even take time to look at them, well, it's difficult to build a relationship with it. Like energetically, you can connect to her. But very often we just do it either to self-pleasure or to shave, or we do it to pee. That's probably the three only reasons why we would ever think of our yoni, of our vulva. And so, yeah, along my journey in this self-pleasure journey, I had to do many mirror practices, actually, where I would literally just sit myself down in front of a mirror. I would light all of my candles, or actually sometimes I would just keep the light on so I would see properly. And I would just take a few breaths to myself and be like, okay, it's going to happen, because it was a big deal for me. I was like, wow, this is weird. And like, I don't like my genitals. And I always judged myself for the smell, like not even knowing what a normal smell was. Like there was all of these things, that I just had stories about. So it was a really big thing to do this. And I did many, many, many mirror rituals and yoni pujas to myself. And yeah, I would just open my legs. I would take a moment to go into this trance state and do this meditative states. I would open my legs and I would just literally look at her and see how are my outer labia positions versus my inner labia. For some, it's like their inner labia are bigger than their outer labia. And for some, it's the other way around. And I had to look for my outer labia. Like, I thought something was wrong with me. I thought my inner labia were my outer labia. So what I now know are my inner labia. I thought those were my outer labia. So my whole idea of my own anatomy was wrong. And so in thinking that my inner labia were my outer labia, I just thought I didn't have any inner labia. And back then I never thought of it as problematic. I did think I was broken, something was wrong with me, and it was weird, and I hope no one would ever notice. But in really looking at it, seeing it, and actually having female friends of mine look at her as well, I had one of my, back then, really close friends tell me, wow, your vulva wants to speak. She's so like, yeah, she wants to speak. She wants to be heard, because my inner labia were just so big. And my outer labia were just relatively flat, let's say, which is normal. It's normal. It's not what we see growing up in the anatomy lessons. But now I've seen so many vulvas that I'm like, yeah, this is a normal shaped vulva. And it's so important for us to understand their own anatomy. Like, how can we get more pleasure if we don't even understand how it's built, and if we don't really listen to her, right? So yeah, that was also a reclamation in my journey to really be like, oh, this is what she looks like. These are her colors. These are, and also looking at her not aroused, semi-aroused, and then fully aroused is also a practice I got from Sherry Winston. Actually, she brought it to my attention of like the vulva changes, which I think many of us will be aware of. It's the same as like when a penis is aroused versus not aroused, it changes. But I had never looked at it. I had felt it. Like I would feel the lubrication. I would feel it getting puffy. I would feel the engorgement, but I never looked at it. And so I would literally start self-pleasure practices and be like looking at her and be like, oh, this is what she looks like now. The colors, the like lack of lubrication then, the shape, the size. And then I would go, continue, and then like halfway, like let's say 30 minutes in, 40 minutes in, I would look at her again and be like, wow, she's changing. And being with full admiration, right? With the eyes of wonder, I like to say. And then I would go on and then I would go like fully aroused and see, wow, there's even more difference that I can observe. And this is actually really magical to see. Really magical to see. Now, these things that I've been sharing, I like sharing from personal experience because, like I'm a goddess and I'm also just a human being and I've had my own journey and you can only learn from that. And this made me a better lover, right? Being okay with my genitals, having a beautiful name for her, going and rewriting the script that I have around masturbation and turning it into self-pleasure and solo sex and worshiping my own body. But one other tip that can help you is how to make self-pleasure even better is to see your body as a gift. And I say this very often because I'm also a boudoir photographer and my own journey has been so focused on the healing of my body image. So this is definitely not new if you're like already familiar with my podcasts or follow me on Instagram, for example. But what's going to help you in your self-pleasure practice and make your pleasure even more, is this idea that your body is a gift. And we have this entire body here, right? We have top to toe an entire body. Yet, we grow up focusing on that X amount of centimeters that we have down there. And so as much as I think, we need to put a lot of attention there, and we really need to make an effort in building relationship with our genitals, like a healthy relationship with our genitals, I'm convinced, I know it is so important for us to zoom out and see our entire body as this gift, as this zone of pleasure that is just endlessly giving and giving and giving. Yet we focus on those few centimeters. So let's stop focusing on the clit, stop focusing on the penis, and just that. Look at your entire body, and not just the physical body and like the things that you can touch, but the tools that you got. For example, your breath. Can you also learn how to incorporate your breath and the sound that your body is capable of making? And okay, one little practice that we can put in here is, I don't know who I got this from, maybe from Layla Martin as well. I don't know by now if it's so many teachers and mentors that have been inspiring me on my journey, but to really unleash yourself in sound. And you may think that you're already very proficient in, is that the right word? I don't know, whatever. You're good at making sound in the bedroom. But I'm going to challenge you, and I'm going to ask you to still do this. So you're going to breathe in, and on your exhale, you're going to make a sound, not just any sound. You're going to go through the vowels. So A, O, U, I, E. You're going to just inhale. Ooh. And you can do that on a functional level, as I did now. And then later on, I'm going to invite you to bring in a little bit more pleasure to that. Oh. And then you're going to go and transition into a different vowel. And transition into a different vowel. Yeah. And transition into a different vowel. And I don't know if you're watching maybe on YouTube or so, but I tend to like already start moving my body. I'm here in in a studio, so I notice I'm like, why am I limiting myself? Actually, good question, good reflection here. Anyhow, so all that to say is that whenever you're making sound and you're unleashing yourself, you might notice a little movement in your body. Like you might notice that your hips might want to spin or wiggle, or you might notice that your chest comes up as you inhale, and then when you exhale and you make that sound, your chest goes down again. So just becoming aware of the subtleties and how your body is communicating with you, and if you can follow the path of pleasure. So giving yourself permission. Wow, this episode is really loaded with gifts, I feel. So making sound, seeing that your body is a gift, and then giving yourself permission. This is key in sexuality, and so therefore also in self-sexuality. So you can be doing the exercise with your sound only, or let's do it with movement and with permission. So make yourself comfortable. Breathe in with me. Yeah. 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 Wow, the vowel A wants to come out very often now. Oh. And then before we transition, I myself want to linger a little bit in this pleasure that I just gifted myself. And so before we go on, I just want to invite you to sit with this. Feel the ripples of pleasure through your body. Yeah, because this is yet another tip in this Masturbation May episode. Woo! And the tip is that we just rush from one thing to another, from this stroke and from that stroke, and we go on to the next thing. But what would happen if we did something pleasurable? If we gave ourselves the gift of adoring ourselves, of worshiping ourselves? And if we would just not go on to the next best thing, but if we would just pause, close our eyes, and just feel what that shifted inside of you. Can you listen to the whispers of your own body here? Like, do you feel the smile on your face because of the pleasure that you felt? Do you feel some energetic current running through you? Do you feel this natural impulse of your body asking for it to move? Like maybe you want to wiggle your hips. I like wiggling my hips. When I like something, I'll wiggle my hips. And here, maybe you are watching or listening on Spotify, but if you're looking on YouTube, you might notice that as I gave myself permission, knowing I'm not alone here in this studio, I started touching the sofa because that would give you even more pleasure. And I was like, fuck it, I'm giving myself permission. This is all about pleasure. And again, the reason why I bring this up is because if you can start looking at your own body as a gift, as something that is more than your genitals when it comes to pleasure, imagine how that translates when you share your body with another human being, when you go into lovemaking. What would happen if you stopped focusing just on their genitals and you would see their entire body? You would give yourself permission to explore their body, and you would give them permission to get at ease and explore the gift that you are giving them by worshiping them. Can you imagine how that will affect your sex life? But it starts with doing it for yourself and noticing the impact, right? Okay. Now, another thing that's going to help you in this self-pleasure journey is understanding which kind of lover you are. And I'm telling you this because this understanding helped me tremendously. What got me from the ordinary, the functional, rubbing my clit basically, to this whole body, multi-orgasmic, delicious, yummy self-pleasure rituals where I go into full worship, that transition happened because I understood that I am a sensual and energetic lover. And I have a quiz on this. You can discover that for yourself, which kind of lover you are. If you follow me on Instagram, I speak a lot about sensuals, but I'm definitely not excluding all other lovers. But so why is it so important to understand which kind of lover you are? Is because I know now that I'm a sensual lover, for example. Let's hone in on the sensual lovers here. Sensuals really need time. They need spaciousness. They need to feel at ease. They want to look pretty, for example. Like I have a lot of lingerie, and when I really, really, really want to make time for beautiful self-pleasure rituals, not just a quick rub to like get an orgasm and like but really this hour-long lovemaking to myself, then I want to make myself pretty. I'll take a shower. I'll put on some beautiful lingerie. I'll put on some really, really good tunes. Like the music will always match my mood. I have some really good music, so maybe I'll also put that in the show notes as a gift for you. And then I really like working with lightning. Oh, lightning. Maybe not lightning, but lighting. And so sometimes I'll want to be a little bit more romantic. I'll check in with my own lover, right? I'll be like, hey, what do we want today? And sometimes she'll be like, oh, let's put on the candles. And then it becomes more romantic. My room turns into this romance movie, basically. And sometimes she gets a little cheeky and then she'll want my RGB lights, which I can turn in any kind of color. Very often I'll go with red or with my pink purple lights. That really does it for me. And yeah, I think those are definitely fundamentals for me. Like room temperature is very important for me, to feel at ease, to feel good. Like I live in Bali at the moment, so AC. When I was living in Belgium back then, I know I wanted it to be warm, or I wanted to have the duvet really warm. So these are all things that in the past, I never took care of that, because obviously I was ashamed about it. It needed to be done really fast and really quick. No one could know about it. So why would I light candles? Why would I put on sound? It's like even more chances of getting caught, right? But now I'm like owning this. This is beautiful. This is something that I want everyone to do. And if my partner or my lover would walk in, then I want them to be inspired by it. And I want them to celebrate me for doing what I'm doing. And so I don't necessarily care anymore about the scene. Like the scene is so important for me. Now, how does this translate into other kinds of lovers? For example, if let's say you're kinky and you're very much into whips, for example, or impact sensorial things, then yeah, you might just want to have your toys and your equipment basically there. Or if you want, what's coming to mind, maybe candles, and that's going to help you in setting the scene and relaxing. But then you don't use the candles for your romantic scene, but you use it to pour over you because you like the impact, right? And so yeah, that takes away the focus again from your genitals, because you will pour the wax maybe on your arm and really see that as a pleasure ritual. Anyhow, this is just one of the examples, right? You discover for yourself what turns you on and what you need, and then apply that to your own lovemaking. Now, if you're very genital focused, orgasm focused, then I recommend you put out all of your toys and go shopping in your own drawer, basically. Set the scene as well. Maybe put on those sexual songs. What comes to mind now is I See Red. I don't know the artist, and on top of mind, I'm so bad with these names. But yeah, like set the scene, choose the music, choose your toy, really drop in again as well. Energetic lovemaking. I'm also very high on energetic. You might need time, space, definitely music that's more heart focused, heart opening. You might want to sit in meditation for a while. You might enjoy lovemaking where you just really open your chest. So if you're looking on YouTube, you might see what I'm doing right now. If not, then you just open your chest like as if your hands are wings, your arms are wings. You open it and you really feel that heart's energy pour out of your heart. Like with the opening of your hands, of your arms, you feel a light cracking through your heart, basically, because you feel the energy of your entire body. Or you might plug your fingers into the universe, into the air, and really tune in with like a divine source that's even bigger than you, right? And you tune in with that energy and let wisdom and pleasure drop through your fingers and breathe it in through your entire body. You might do consecration if you're into tantric practices. You might sit in front of a mirror and just do eye gazing with yourself. Like, all of these things could give you an idea of how you can incorporate it into your lovemaking. Now, this is also obviously my invitation for you to explore which kind of lover am I, and which of these things, because the ideas are endless. You can do anything to really please your own lover and be your own best lover, but just go through all of it, and just see what is it that I want today. Because also, don't be too harsh on yourself. I hear this very often that once we discover what we like, we think that is it. But in that, you're basically limiting yourself because your body changes day in, day out. So if you do what you like today and you assume that that is what you will like for the rest of your life now, then you're really limiting your own pleasure. So acknowledge that your pleasure or your desires might change, and just taking a moment before you self-pleasure. What is it that my lover today really wants and needs? So these were a lot of tips, right? I want to conclude this episode with just highlighting one more time, because I think I only briefly went over it, what this self-pleasure also taught me. And I brought it up, or I touched on it with the vowel practice. So to learn how to give yourself permission in self-pleasure is so important for your lovemaking, because, hear me out, this is really important, because it teaches you to receive actively. And with that, I mean that you learn how to not just receive pleasure, but really make it bigger for yourself. Because I hear all the time, and this is especially for us women, because I know I hear it all the time. Oh, I just want him to dom me, or I want him to be in control. I want to just receive. I want to, surrender and let go. And there's a few ways we can look at this surrendering and let go. One way is starfishing, not doing anything, just laying there on the bed, on your back, and just letting him or her, if you're not in a heterosexual relationship, just letting them do the work. And then you are indeed surrendering. But I don't necessarily call it surrendering. I call it more like just laying there, right? You're just a starfish, as the word itself speaks for itself. Now, another way of receiving is actively receiving. And that means that you follow the path of pleasure. You don't go for the mission of orgasm. And you also don't go into something that is just not working for you, but is working for your partner, because that is pleasing. But what you're really doing here is you are following your path of pleasure. So that means if something feels really good, really pleasurable, that you give yourself permission to do even more. And so you use your breath. You use sound, you use movement. And in that way, you go from this starfish who's just laying there to a person, a human being who's just there really energetically also. So you're physically using sound, breath, movement, and energetically you're laying there and thinking, wow, I am being worshipped, and I am worshiping my partner or my lover. And both the physical interaction, the physical receiving of the physical touch, breath, sound, movement, and then energetically also receiving in this state of wonder. Wow, someone's here with me. I'm here with someone else. Wow, we're merging. That changes everything, right? But so in order for you to do that with someone else, you have to do that with yourself first. And that doesn't happen when you just use those 2 fingers, rub on your clit in silence and go to orgasm. Then you hardly ever have even chance to think of the worshiping aspect, and you don't have time to tune in with the energetical aspect. You don't use your full pleasure fundamentals, the breath, the sound, movement, because you're just focused on the orgasm, right? And so, it's really my invitation with this to use those pleasure fundamentals, go from the ordinary into the extraordinary, and just love yourself, and not in a fluffy way. I'm saying this. I hope after this entire episode, you learn why I'm so obsessed with self pleasure and why I'm such an advocate for it and why I really want you to prioritize your own pleasure. And so with that, I want to conclude. I usually do my practice at the end, actually. You might be aware of that because I always end the episode with a pleasure practice. But I already did that with the vowels. I really let myself be. So if you missed that and you usually scroll to the end to see the practice, and I recommend you to just go through the full episode and do the vowel practice. Do the journaling prompts, like they're so important to understand what the root causes of your sexuality at the moment. And as always, I love it when you leave a review, and I love receiving messages in my DM about reflections, things that have shifted for you by listening to this. If you can recommend this episode to any one of your friends or of the close relatives that you have, whomever you think can benefit from this, please do me a favor, share this work, and I look forward to seeing you on my next episode.